Jess, welcome to the Sunday Afternoon Smokes Lounge. It's super nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's not often that I've had a fair number of ladies on the show. Most of them don't smoke. And those that do either have tried, like for the first time, they're having a cigar on the show, right? Just to kind of lean in and have fun. Or they'll smoke it for like 10, 15 minutes and then just put it down, which is fine. But you but you've been involved in the cigar industry.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to actually have somebody that has a connection to that world in here today, because that's not anything I've ever had on the show before.
Cool.
So we're going to talk about cigars for a bit before we get into everything else. But before we get going, I'd like to just let my guests introduce themselves.
Sure.
So if you will, take a minute, introduce yourself, say as much or as little about yourself as you like. And then while you do that, I'll light my cigar.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds great.
Go for it.
My name is Jessica Eshan, and I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. As Chris mentioned, I have been around cigars for a long time, since 2009. I actually did a lot of cigar blogging, and I was kind of, I don't want to say famous or perhaps infamous on Twitter in the early days of Cro-Magnon and Skip Martin and all of those fellas, and just loved this industry and had a lot of good experiences. And a little bit about my background: I lead HR for a global tech company, Islet Technologies, and so I'm a human resources executive with that company, and I'm also a realtor that's licensed in North and South Carolina. And I've been working in that for about 2 years now, and just really excited to be here.
Sweet. Great introduction. You've got a Davidoff Signature 2000 and a glass of water. I've got a cup of Blackwater coffee roasters, and I've got a, are you familiar with the boutique brand Ezra Zion?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So I've got a cigar of theirs today. I don't know how to say this. I don't know if it's a soft J or a hard J, Jamais or Hamais Vu. I don't know. It's my first time smoking it, but I have a friend who has sent me quite a bit of stuff from Ezra Zion / Nomad, and they make some really good cigars.
Yeah.
They really, really do. So how did you get into the world of cigars?
Sure. Well, in 2009, I was dating a man named Andrew, and he introduced me to cigars. He was very into cigars himself, had just gotten into them. And he was on his way back home from work, and I think I just had a really tough day. And he had bought me these Moonstrucks, which are infused little cigarillos, really not even cigars, right?
Mm-hmm. Those are CAO, right?
Yeah. And so he comes home, and I've just lit one up in the garage. And I was like, wow, I kind of like this. And, I love to find ways to relate to people. And that was a really big part of our connection when we were dating. Like, he was really into my hobbies, and he took a vested interest in that. And then that was something that was important to him and became a part of our social circle. And just like I do, I take things to the extreme. You'll hear that throughout my story. It's like balance is quite difficult. I'm trying to find rhythm now. I can sometimes be all or nothing. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to learn everything that I could possibly learn about cigars. And so I spent time online, Twitter, and it was a huge X now. And back then it was Twitter. And so I just started engaging with folks online, and they would send me things and like ask me my thoughts. I had a home shop at the time, and that was Outman Cigars. And when they came to visit or the reps would come to visit, they would send me a message on Twitter and say, hey, we'd love to meet you. We've seen a lot of your content online. And so I would go and hang out with them and they'd give me, bags of their cigars. And, it wasn't
it's not a bad
situation.
Yeah. When I was at TPE in 25, I left with a lot of cigars.
Mm-hmm.
I smoked a lot of cigars and I came home with a lot of cigars.
Yeah. And it became a really huge part of our social circle. Like we met a lot of our mutual friends, couple friends, at Altman's and different places. Boda, that's another lounge that I frequented back when it was in McAllister Square. I've gone a couple times now. It's in its new location, which is great. And but yeah, that's kind of how I get into it.
But you actually worked in the world of cigars, correct?
Well, no, I did a blog, so they didn't necessarily. I wasn't smart enough at the time to monetize it, Chris.
Yeah.
And so my compensation was more of giving free cigars.
That's still not a.
And it wasn't a bad gig. Now I'll tell you what. One time, so there was a Rocky Patel rep position opened. It's kind of a high turnover industry at times. It's a lot of travel. And I had a master's degree in HR. And I was seriously considering, I was like, I'm just going to be a rep.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. I think I spoke with Nish at the time and he was like, I'm not sure you want to do that. This is a hard knock life.
Yeah, it sounds fun, but when you actually think about it, I mean, and I've said, I might have said this before on a different podcast. That's probably a really great job for a guy who's like 21 and not married and has no kids, got no responsibilities, but he loves cigars and he's kind of, he's got the salesman attitude because it's got to be difficult to go into all of these brick and mortars and convince these owners that they need to stock, this new line of Rocky Patel or this new boutique cigar company or this and make room in your already crowded humidor for this new and you're driving from Georgia to South Carolina to North Carolina to wherever.
Right.
You're like all the brick and mortars in 6 states belong to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's, like I said, a good job for a 21-year-old who's not married, but no kids.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a true road warrior for that. And it looked very glamorous. When they would come in, they're dressed nicely. It's the culture, right? It's like, and
it's like being a farmer rep.
I know, exactly. And oh, by the way, everyone's good looking.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's generally how it goes.
Same as a farmer rep, right? So, but it was like. And that has been something that's kind of a theme of my life anyway. It's like I find these passions.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, let's make a job out of it. Hence the real estate coming in. Oh, I love running numbers for investors. I love looking at property values. I love doing data analytics. So let's add a second job.
Yeah. So how long did your blog last?
I ran it for about 10 years. Yeah, and I have these books, Chris, of like I would take the labels off. So this is a bangle made of labels, and I would just keep them, and I would just have them in big glass canisters, or I'd paste them in books and write about them, and so I have all these journals with it. And it was a lot of fun. And, again, I didn't know how to monetize it. I don't even think monetization was a thing back then, at least. And I did it for passion. This is so fun. And I thrive on connection. And so I really enjoyed meeting different people from different walks of life and doing the traveling. I went to Buckhead Cigar a bunch and, different places in Tennessee and different IPCPR and just really enjoyed meeting people and hearing their story, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how that monetization thing worked back then, like on, when you just have a blog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess the idea would have been maybe get popular enough and then people pay you to run ads on your site, like clickable ads.
Yeah, like Half Wheel. Have you heard of Half Wheel?
Oh, yeah,
Charlie.
sure, yeah.
And so I was I was a party to, meaning I witnessed his journey.
Mhm.
I met him one time in Buckhead Cigar in Atlanta. He was a young guy. You know, you would never thought, you know, looking at Charlie, like, that he would be a cigar smoker.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just so awesome to see someone so young just deep dive into this. And I'm so excited for all of the things that he did as a part of his journey. And watching Half Wheel completely just crush it and grow, and he did it. He made it happen.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I was also, you know, finishing a master's degree in a long-term new relationship, living with somebody, and, you know, going this direction. And so it was a good outlet for me at the time.
I mean, we live in a totally different world now when it comes to monetization.
Oh, yeah.
Like things like, well, Sunday Afternoon Smokes a podcast, for instance, a video podcast. You can do that, and all of the influencers on social media pushing and hawking products. And I feel like it's much easier to get that monetization than the days back before social media existed.
Yeah, definitely.
The window's gotten much bigger.
Yeah, and it's almost expected now, Chris. It's like, well, if you're doing something like this, you have sponsors.
Yeah.
You know. So
I do. I have a couple of sponsors, founding sponsors for Sunday Afternoon Smokes. My friend Cody Stinson at Media Lifeline. So he built and manages the Sunday Afternoon Smokes website.
oh,
He has me hooked up with his CRM, which handles, all the back end, like email.
oh yeah,
Like texting, if I have people's numbers, if I want to do that, like have a work number and shoot stuff out. So
awesome.
yeah. So Media Lifeline, Cody Stinson, he handles all that. And then I said before, my friend Josiah Hartline helped make this whole thing possible because he gave me that camera and that lens to take this show to video. So he's like a founding partner. I'll be getting some artwork done back on this wall here hopefully soon. And there'll be like artistic partners. Armand, I'm not going to say it right, but it's Grossbier. Sorry, Armand. That's the best I can do. It's like German, Dutch. Grossbier.
Cool.
But he's a tattoo artist. His episode went up 2 Sundays ago. He owns House of Holland Tattoo Emporium.
Okay.
In Greenville. He's from South Africa, immigrated, opened a shop, but he's a talented artist. And so I'm going to get some artwork on the wall. And so I have these founding sponsors, and they're very, very helpful, and I'm grateful. And now I'm working towards, like, now we need local sponsors that pay.
Yeah, right.
That help. And it just is, I don't know, it's not easy, but it's helpful. I find sometimes in the world of business or whatever you're doing, it's like when you need and want sponsors, you're thinking, I need 5 or 7 or whatever number is, but it's like, just get the first one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just get the first one, because then if you have that's like it's a little signal to other businesses. Like, all right, somebody else believes in this.
Right.
Somebody else has already handed this guy, money or whatever. So it gives you kind of like street cred.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that, and also I love the phrase, 1 is better than 0. Right? I mean, let's just distill it down to
true.
1 being better than 0. I have a CEO that tells me that all the time. And he's always reminding me function over form. Because, I can get my perfectionism, get into things look right, perfect. And it's like, did we get so far in that direction where we're losing the functionality?
Sure.
And so I think it's, those are 2 things that I really think about, is like productivity over activity. And that I think about that in more so now as I've gotten older. I'll be turning 40 next month. And
let's go.
I know, right? Having an amazing birthday party. You're invited.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
So cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the party?
It's at my house in North Maine. So we just bought a great house last year, and
Just closed a few days ago.
no, the 15th of 2025. So
Whenever I read that in the in the form, I was like, dang, she's gonna be busy.
I know.
They come because today's the 20th.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No. So we moved here a year ago, and we got married on winter solstice, David, my husband, and I, and we decided instead of doing a big honeymoon and a big wedding that we were going to invest in entertaining space at our home.
I think that's a lovely idea.
And it looks wonderful, and so grateful for making that decision. It looks awesome, and I have a big garden with raised beds, and that's something that I've really been loving.
I've never heard anybody say they did that in lieu of a honeymoon.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
never, ever have I heard that. And I think that's much, I don't know. I think it depends on your age some. Like, a honeymoon is fun. You make memories, you go somewhere cool, you take pictures, and you'll have those around, but that's not the same as having this dedicated space in your home that you live in every day, and every time you host, people are in it, and you're like, this is what we did. And it seems to me that is it's much more satisfactory.
And long term.
Well, yeah.
And it added immediate value to our house. Yes, it was very expensive, but our team, Frank's Landscaping, Francisco, a great friend of mine, did a wonderful job. I mean, to the effect of when they would be done for the day, Chris, I would see one of his team members go walk around the street of the neighborhood, blowing any cars off for any dust they could have possibly created.
Good man.
Like, I was like, this is what I'm talking about. They showed up on time, and it was a couple, maybe 4-week project, weather dependent. They were there during Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving. And so we brought them Thanksgiving food. They're and so they became, their choice, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Not all,
and so they were, and they enjoyed it. And I had made, I can't remember the cake that I made or something. There was a dessert that I made, and they were like, oh my gosh, what is this? And so to be able to treat them in that way, and them to be a part of our Thanksgiving too, and share that meal was really fun. And we got married on a Sunday morning at 9 downtown. We did a pop-up, which is free, by the way, doing a pop-up wedding. Now, I should have gotten a permit for $50, but I didn't know. So we did a little pop-up, and then
sure Greenville's going to send you a notice after hearing this episode.
Sorry, Shannon Lavrin, I apologize. She's our city manager. She's a great lady. She's one of a kind. So and then we got to spend the whole week of Christmas at our home. And, it's very mild here. And so one of the gifts I got my husband for our wedding presents and Christmas presents was this like huge made in USA steel on casters fire pit, this like a giant triangle. And so we just sat out by the fire and did like these kind of married people Mad Libs and different like intimacy games. Yeah. And it was cool. And he bought me this big TV on wheels. And so we were watching TV out there.
That's awesome. That sounds fantastic.
It was great.
So you mentioned you are a realtor. You run your own team. What brokerage are you with?
So I'm with Keller Williams, and to clarify, the team is my husband and myself.
That's a team of two.
It is team of two, and that is good.
Yeah,
that is good for now.
Sure. I was in real estate for a few years with Sedan Joyner.
Okay.
As part of a team. And they were great people. The brokerage itself was fantastic. I appreciated everyone over there. I was a part of 2 different teams during my time. And then my wife had her medical trauma. It just didn't make any sense for me to continue.
Yeah.
Real estate, for people that's never been in it, it's hard business. It's very hard business. And I did not, I moved to the upstate in the summer of 2019. Didn't really know anybody. And so I don't have a big circle of influence and know a lot of people. And so it made it extremely difficult. And then, we had this medical trauma, and I mostly, I'm here taking care of her. And I want to be here, take care of her, not run around trying to show people houses.
Yeah.
That takes time and hours. And so I finally decided to let my license expire. And I am not unhappy about it.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Yeah, it is a really tough business. My husband has been a successful realtor in North and South Carolina for 10 years now. And it was interesting. I was like, when we were getting to know each other, I was like, how can you run a multi-million-dollar business with no operational infrastructure? Which is so common amongst real estate agents. Like they just get so busy that the operations piece just doesn't, happen, like the CRM or repeatable system of things. And I have to have those systems in my corporate role. I mean, one of the things that I specialize in is operational turnaround and scale for tech companies. I worked for tech companies for a long time. And so I saw an immediate, I have a very fixer mindset, I think like most women do. And so I was like, oh, well, I can help. We can build a CRM. We're going to do database, clean it. We're going to have a vendor list. We're going to do all of these different checklists of like, here's the relocation guide. Here's this guide. Here's that guide. And then I started helping some clients, like not in a fiduciary capacity because that would be illegal. And then I was like, I think I'm just going to get my license because I can be more useful. And so I got licensed in February 19th for South Carolina, and then March 17th for North Carolina. And I've got a listing now that's an investment multifamily property, which what a wowzer first listing, that we've received a cash offer on already. It's not the good number that we want, so we'll be holding out because those deals take time. And then I've got 3 listings coming up.
Listings are hard.
I love them so much.
They're hard.
They're so hard, though.
Like being a buyer's agent is like there's pros and cons to both sides. You know what I mean? The nice thing about being a listing agent is you're not driving all over, creation, showing all of these houses. And then like you're meeting this buyer couple or whoever, and they tell you, okay, I want this, and I'm looking for this kind of home. I'm looking in this area, and this is my budget. And then they send you a home that they want to see that's not in the area, and it's not in the budget, and it's not anything you said you wanted. So I'm like, that happens all the time. All the time. And so the listing side is great because you don't have to put up with that. But like, dude, doing the comps and trying to figure out where to list this thing price-wise. I mean, the person you're listing for, obviously that helps a lot because they have a general idea of what they want it to be sold for. And of course, you get to say, I think you're spot on, or you get to say, I think you're a little low, or you get to say, in more diplomatic terms, you're dreaming.
Yeah.
But I've done a couple of listings and they are just very difficult.
Yeah. And you know what they say, list to last, right? Because as a buyer's agent, oftentimes, and it depends on the questions that you've asked, like in a consultation, I'm extremely thorough. Like my buyer's consults are not talking about just the area in which they want to live, but I really hone in on questions of tell me about your lifestyle. What are you doing between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.? Where are you generally located? Where are you spending your time on the weekends? And so it's interesting because I'm a native here. There'll be places that I suggest that they didn't even think about. Like, oh, I want kind of walkable, but I don't want to pay over $500,000. Well, have you considered Overbrook? Right. And so because I have the knowledge of living here forever and seeing these places come in, I can suggest different things that are outside because I have uncovered their lifestyle preferences, and that's a lot more detailed oriented and different question set than what's your price range in your bedroom, which anybody can do. And with I'm a data nerd. I have worked in tech for a long time, over 10 years. And I work with engineers. And I also work with private equity. So if you don't...
It's all number nerds.
and so I have had to play in that field, right? Like, okay, emotions in HR, that's great. They want to hear about that, but they also want to understand the statistics about why investing in that certain thing is going to be a return. And so I love comps. And so I build a Claude AI model.
I don't. Maybe that's why it's hard for me.
Well, it's just because I'm a data nerd. And also with AI, I worked in AI since 2018. And so I have a Claude model now that I've built skills out that can help me, pull a baseline based on these parameters, and I just hone it in.
Yeah.
And I've had this template where it comes up, and that's what I bring to my consults. And I'll tell you the privilege part for me though is, Chris, is that it's really hard to be a realtor if that's your full-time job. And because mine isn't, and I still have a full-time job, I get to be very discerning about the clients that I take on. If we're just misaligned about, I give a range for lists and I say ideal target if you want to move this, and I let, we play within that ball game. If someone is way over, then I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm the best agent for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think, and when you're having to rely on this for a paycheck, you get nervous. There's fear that comes up, right? And that hijacks you. Is like, I need to get this deal. I need to get, and so I'm really fortunate of where I am in this real estate journey that I'm not coming from that place. Now, have I thought to myself, oh, I just lost that deal? Yeah. And then I'm able to pattern interrupt and like, did we really lose it or did we not have it to begin with? And really challenge that way of thinking.
Well, yeah, there's that, or, there's multiple ways of looking at it. You probably save yourself a headache.
Absolutely.
Same thing. I mean, I have a friend who's a realtor, and he's done it for over a decade here in the upstate. He knows what he's doing. But no matter how much experience you have, there's always those moments where you're just, the temptation is there.
Oh, yeah.
Thing. So he got this like 7-figure build on this house, and he was interviewing with them, and he said, they wanted to list it here, and I told him, you really should list it here. They were too high. He was right, and he knew it in his gut, but he took it anyway.
Oh, I know. I see it all the time.
He took it anyway. And what happened? Well, what happened is exactly what he knew was going to happen. He wasted a bunch of money trying to sell this house, getting a photographer and nice video, because let's face it, a 7-figure home gets a different marketing treatment than a home that's, $350,000.
100%.
It's in a different it's just a different game. Yeah, and it absolutely should, because and the people don't understand that as you have to spend more money on the homes that are more expensive to sell, because the buyer pool is significantly smaller.
That's right.
Significantly smaller. So, he spent all this money marketing this home. It was overpriced. He knew it. The lady would never come down. It was a pain in the butt. He kept it for 6 months, 9 months. Then, he just had to let it go.
That's right.
But he's like, I knew this was going to happen. But it was just like, that deal, it would have been a great
commitment. Of course.
Yeah. So it's hard to say no.
It really is. And that's why I do so much preparation when I go to my listing appointments. It's just like really reflecting, and I share the data. Like I shared the comps with them. Here's why. And I also have talk tracks. I was like, well, Zillow says my home. Well, Zillow is an algorithm that's making bets on the highest possible price point, right? It's a marketing thing. And so, I think, and I'm look, and while I may have been in real estate for a very short amount of time, the thing is that I know business very well.
Sure.
Well,
look, for people are attached to their homes, and I understand why, but at the end of the day, this is a business transaction. Strip all of the emotion away from it. And depending on who your client is, if you're selling, I understand. Like if you're selling to, a couple that's in their, mid 50s. They may be super attached. We raised our family in this home. We raised our children here. We got, my son's first car here. Our children were born here. All the things, right? And that memory will always live in your heart and in your mind. But to the person buying this home, it's drywall and lumber and paint. That's all it is to them.
Yeah.
So it's like you're playing like psychologist.
Absolutely.
You're playing like marriage counselor between husband and wife when they can't agree. It's being a realtor is an interesting job.
Much like HR though, right? Because it's almost a little bit like armchair psychologist in so many different ways. And I have many bosses. Like I work for a private equity company. They're a boss. I report to a CFO. That's a boss. I also kind of report to the CEO. But the biggest people that I serve are always going to be the employees. Like, and I stay like fully grounded in that, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I hear all of these things and I was actually speaking with my boss this morning. I saw an email in my box over the weekend and I was like, well, I'm just phoning you first thing on a Monday morning because I need to talk to my spiritual guru because I'm torn out of the frame. And so like a thing that I do is I make decisions with community. And so I'm not afraid to ask for help. So I called my boss and I was like, here's how I'm experiencing this situation. What do you suggest for me? And I'm open to that. And I tell my clients, when we're talking about numbers, Chris, I'm like, look, I'm not afraid to be wrong. Like, and so I set the stage of that. I said, let's give this 2 weekends. If we don't see consistent showings 2 weekends and have an offer, I'm going to make a recommendation that we drop the price 3 to 6%.
Yeah.
And we talk about that throughout the prep phase. I've been doing prep with one of my clients for about 75 days. Beautiful 4.5 acres, picturesque place near Furman Golf Course, in-ground pool. I mean, just a stunning piece of property. Needs some updates. So we have to market to that buyer. And I've been very clear with her, and she's a wonderful client. Like, hey, this is generally how it's going to go. If we start seeing things slumping, we're not right, and I was wrong, and I take responsibility for that.
Yeah. Well, it's an up and down market, and I know like the market has significantly changed in the last year, and so how are things from a lady that is currently in real estate? How are things looking in the other state?
Yeah, I mean, I think that things are looking really well. I hear a lot of times like, oh, the market. Again, that's also where I place a lot of emphasis on radical acceptance. The market is always just going to be the market. The thing that I can control is how I respond to it, how I plan for it, the strategy that I'm going to employ. I know that there is higher inventory now than ever. So that means that there's more choices. That means that for a seller, you have a more competitive landscape, especially in places like Fountain Inn, Simpsonville, or where there's a lot of subdivisions that have come up. You'll see people who have bought in the last 2 years or so, they want to go and resell, and phase 2, new construction, is right down the road, and they can't compete with those type of prices or 4.99.
Well, that's
one of these places.
Well, that's why I bought this house. My wife and I bought this house in 22, and the market was wild.
Yeah.
And people were still moving here. And of course, people are still moving to the upstate, but people were like still coming from California and New Jersey and New York and maybe certain places in Florida, and they're just coming and they're just paying cash for houses.
That's right.
And we just couldn't compete. And my realtor at the time, she said, "Have you considered new construction?" And I'm like, "No, I've never even thought of it." And while I really loathe it, I mean, I can't think of a stronger word than loathe.
Right.
I loathe the HOA, but I just can't compete.
Yeah, I know.
I just couldn't compete.
I know.
And so you're right. Like when people are trying to sell a home and somebody, D.R. Horton or Mungo or Lennar or whoever's is building brand new tract homes 5 minutes down the road that's cheaper than your 40-year-old house, you're just not going to be able to compete.
And offering 4.99 with buy downs. I mean, that's for real going on right now.
Yeah.
And so, and at the same time, I see more and more people that call me and they're like, I just can't do it. It's not who I am. I can't, and so they're willing to take less square footage, Chris, because they want the old charm, and like tailors, that is a great area. If you have some appetite in 29687 to get a rancher that needs some cosmetic updates that has a great foundation, that is your area. And so there are some pockets that are like that. I have a lot of fun because I enjoy meeting people so much and I love hearing their story. Like just this year, I've been able to help a person fairly new in sobriety, post-divorce, get into a new place, got to know his family, got to meet, learn about his little girl, and see him go through a job loss process, throughout my friendship with him. Because that's what happens is that relationship doesn't end for me when the transaction ends. And not because like, oh, I'm trying to get the next deal, but like you come to care about people while also maintaining some objectivity to help them. And so like another, a client of mine with a place coming up here in the North Main area, he's moving back to Florida. He's, retired. Was a former EMS worker and he's the last family member. And so he's leaving tomorrow and we're having pictures done soon. And so helping him through this chapter and him telling me stories about his mom and his childhood and just in little glimpses of these people's lives and selling a lady's childhood home. And so it's been, I just love being a part of these people's journey.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting warm, so I'm.
Oh, you're totally good.
Yeah. So there's something always that's very rewarding about serving and helping people. And, realtors do that, whether it's that assistance in helping to buy or sell a home, but you do get to make relationships that can be beneficial for you business-wise in the future, but also just on a personal level. You make friends.
Yeah.
And that's very rewarding. But you're working 2 jobs. Realtor part-time with your husband, and then you work HR for, like you said, in manufacturing tech company.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you work 2 jobs?
Well, I'm new to real estate, right? And I have been in HR for 18 years. And I'm in a really good position where I'm respected at my company and I have a wonderful boss who gives me a lot of support. And I get a lot of freedom and autonomy. We're in manufacturing, which is a huge, area for this. And my family, my brother's a CNC machinist over at GE Aviation. And my mom worked at Bosch Rexroth. And so I've grown up in manufacturing. And so they're letting me be a part of manufacturing networking groups. And so I went and toured Proterra, and I've been going to the European Chamber of Commerce and learning more about the ecosystem of economic development here. And met a friend in one of these networking groups at Isuzu and connected him with Craig Brown and Jeff Brown of the Greenville Drive so they can be a part of Advanced Manufacturing Night. And I'm really a connector at heart. And the big reason is because realtors are 1099s. They're contractors. They don't get insurance. And I don't know about anybody else, but insurance is expensive, friends. Like, that is crazy. And so that's one reason is there's some golden handcuffs there. Also, I would like the opportunity to build a larger runway of what a good pipeline and a funnel is before like fully disconnecting from that. And I have a wonderful, wonderful people who report to me. And I really enjoy, serving in that capacity as well. I work for private equity. And so we're doing an acquisition in Israel right now. I've done 3 acquisitions since I've been there, 3 years in August. And so very complex global acquisitions. And, I've taken this company from about 45 employees to 200
Wow.
in 3 years. And so, and I work online. And so there's a component of me that's like, what can I do that's out in the community? Like get involved with the chamber. And I've selected for Leadership Greenville in this upcoming cohort. And so I'm really privileged to be able to do that with the chamber and be a part of pace setters. And Tim Justice and Dan Rundle have been, instrumental in making introductions out in the community, whether it be the mayor or Shannon Laverin or Sam Conduras, all of these people that are influential in economic development and how our city operates. And it's been so fun.
Yeah, I mean, you're like elbows deep in a lot of
I know. How many jobs do I have?
it sounds like you've got more than two. I mean, I've got, I just between my podcast and running the cigar box, which is my mobile cigar hospitality, trailer service. And then if you have friends that want, they've got an extra bedroom in their house and they want to turn it into a smoking room, I'm working on that. Like, I know how to get it done because here we are, smoking in my house. And, so I'm working on getting that up off. I mean, it's up off the ground as far as like anybody can DM me or call me tomorrow and I can come and do what I do and make it happen. I just haven't really spent time like trying to advertise.
Marketing
it out there. Yeah, I haven't done yet. And, being just the caretaker for the wives, it's just like there's so much happening. And not to be redundant, you don't know this, but the previous episode I recorded, I'll just say this when it comes to my podcast and recording and then getting the episodes to all the platforms and the shorts and I do all that. I don't have a team, I'm just a one man. I'm a one man crew. And so you've got to dive in and you've got to decide, okay, what do I want to do? How am I going to accomplish this? Make your plan and, plan the work the plan as it goes. And so you've got a lot going on. And you mentioned the Greenville Drive having a what night?
Yeah, they have advanced manufacturing night. So it's Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday, August 4th. And so a lot of the manufacturers, BMW, Michelin, Isuzu, and people will be there with their families. It's a really good opportunity. It's such an important part of our ecosystem here.
Yeah.
And so that'll be really cool. And I'm sure the Triumph will do something similar. They have Jonathan Stanley, who's their CRO now. He's just joined the company about 8 weeks ago. I'm meeting with him on Thursday. How are things going? How can I help introduce you and be of service in that way so that can really take some flight?
Well, look, Greenville Drive and Triumph. I know it's against the law, but who cares? Let's have cigar night.
Right.
Hello.
Right. Well, I mean, that may be a good opportunity for like some private events, though. You know what I mean? Like get, Stephen Delisle or, do you know Stephen? So he
I don't know any.
Oh man.
But you always play the game of degrees of separation.
Sure.
Because I don't know people that know them, but now I do.
Yeah.
So
And
it's like and like my wife, I remember, that old saying, it's not what you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But she always would tell me, it's not who you know, it's who they know.
So true.
And it's so very true. So you can introduce me to all these people, and not just for cigar events, but these are people that I would love to sit in this chair.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
So many great people to hear their story just like in this platform. And it would be amazing. Like on Thursday night, I'm going to hear Carl Sobosinski's story.
I don't even know who that is.
He is the guy that founded Table 301.
Okay, yeah.
And so we're having a meeting with pace setters, the Greenville Chamber. Cheryl does a wonderful job for people under 40. I'm aging out this year. So I've just made the cutoff to meet all these wonderful people through our cohort. And one of them is Carl, and he just kind of fell. I understand he fell into being a restaurateur. He has an architecture degree, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing from him. My husband and I are going with our pace setters cohort. We're gonna have some dinner and be inspired by these people.
That is like such it's so amusing about life to me and how it works, and all these people that go to school for X, Y, and Z, and it's not even what they do. You know what I mean? Like, I've got an architecture degree, but I'm really a restaurateur. Like, what? How does that work?
I have a law degree, but I'm doing software sales, or I have a law degree and then I'm doing economic development. You know, I've heard, like that's Sam Konduras's story. Like,
which makes me really ask the question, and I ask this seriously. Why are we going to college?
I told my mother last weekend, Chris, I was like, because we're, I have a brother, a younger brother. He lives in Easley, actually not too far away from here. And I have a niece. And, it's interesting talking to young people. I think she's 12, 13, around there. And, what do you want to do when you grow up? And how the answer is so different now. Because for me, the only path was, I'm going to go to a 4-year degree, and that's the way it's going to be. And now I hear that people don't want to. And my mom is sometimes getting all up arms about this. And I just told her, I said, listen, if I had to do it again now, I would not go accumulate that debt right now. Now, am I grateful that I got a 4-year degree and then decided to pursue a master's in HR? Absolutely. And that was the right decision for that time. But now, no. Greenville Tech is going to be opening an AI in manufacturing center. It's on the docket. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Well, the world is just much different than it was, 20 or 30 years ago. Whenever I was 18, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I had zero idea. The new term floating around back then was like sports medicine. It's not really a thing. It's a fancy title, but like physiology is physiology. No matter if you hurt yourself because you're a roofer and you hurt your shoulder, or you got, plowed on the football field and you hurt your shoulder. The shoulder's the shoulder. It doesn't matter how or why it got hurt. But I don't have the brains to be a doctor. I have plenty of brains to smoke cigars and talk to people, but like to go into medical school, I'm just not smart enough for that, And so I wasted 2 years of my parents' money in Texas going to college, and then I wound up becoming a Christian in December of 1999, and then I got my bachelor's of religious education. I have a master's in, Bible, not a master's. I have a major in Bible.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm probably worth a master's after 12 years of pastoring and studying. And
here's your master's. I'm minting you.
If I could get an honorary master's,
we're doing it right now.
Yes, thank you. But now, like, I'm just this guy who's, building this podcast. But that's the thing. You can build something and make money at it eventually. It might take you some time. Right. I mean, we're sitting here. I'm recording with you right now, episode 79.
Wow.
Okay. It's going to take some time, and you might have to do some side hustles or work part-time doing whatever to just kind of make ends meet. But you can... The world that we live in is so different from the world when I graduated in 1998 from high school, or even my dad's generation. Like, you can build something and make a living at it without having to pay off student loans.
Yeah.
It's just, and I've said this many times, I think everybody should dream.
Yeah.
Everybody should dream, but it's just, there's something about those people that decide to actually pull the trigger. And I don't know what the difference maker is there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like also, I think with HR, and I love it, and I have a lot of autonomy, but I've always been what I call a builder. And that's how I fell into, going to these different jobs where we've just bought a portfolio from IBM. And it needs a full turnaround. Well, we're starting from ground zero, right? And so I've always been attracted to opportunities like that in a very entrepreneurial mindset. And one thing I heard you say just now was that I'm just a. You know, like, do you hear me say that? Like, you're like, no, you are a podcast host. You are not just a. And so, and you know, what's interesting is like, somebody corrected me like early in sobriety. And that's a big part of my story is I remember I was, in a 12-step meeting and I was picking up a chip, I think 30 days. And I said, he came up to me and congratulated me on that. His name is David W. Lived in Asheville. Very impactful to that early time for me. And I said, I mean, what do you mean? I just have 30 days. And he's like, you have 30 days, not just. And that has stayed in my person about how much I am subconsciously minimizing that accomplishment, that overcoming of a fear so profound. If everybody's going to have a podcast, everybody would be doing it, right? You know, and so it's like something that I think I catch myself doing. Oh, I'm just, you know, and so it's like the pattern interrupt, and because it takes so much, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. That gets into the world of philosophy and which is fine, the philosophical world and how you think about things and how your personality is. Like I used to have a motorcycle, and it was a small bike, right? It was like a 600cc. It was great for just like around town.
Yeah.
You know, I'd ride it up in the mountains in California from time to time, and on certain hills it would struggle. You know, and I'm like, oh, come on. It just, I mean, it would make it fine, but just if I was riding with other people that had like a 900, so I just couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember I was I don't know, I think I went into a coffee shop one day and I had my helmet in my hand, maybe my jacket on, and this other dude came in the shop, the coffee shop, and he's like, "Hey man, you got a bike?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's out there." He's like, "Well, what are you riding?" I'm like, "Oh, it's I think it was a Yamaha Shadow or something like that." I'm like, "It's just a little 600cc." And he goes, "No. It's not just it's a bike, man. You ride a bike. You know, it's the same idea."
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just I try to in my personal life err on the side of humility.
Sure.
And before I'm a podcast host or a cigar guy, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a husband. I'm a son.
Absolutely.
I'm a Christian. And so like that, I'm just a guy doing this podcast. That doesn't bother me. I don't feel it's very important.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe it is to somebody, and that's just my opinion about myself and this show. So there's some people out there with very successful whatever, and I am this. Good for you.
Yeah.
But that's my heart. That's who I am.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So speaking of sobriety, you brought it up. You've been on quite the journey.
Yeah.
In your life.
I sure have.
And I'm curious about some things that you shared with me before the show. I mean, I know like you said, you're native to the area, born, you know, the Blue Ridge area, kind of a difficult childhood. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Just walk me through that.
Yeah, sure. So the Reader's Digest version, if you will. So yeah, I grew up in Blue Ridge, went to Gateway Elementary and Blue Ridge Middle and Blue Ridge High, and didn't grow up with much. Grew up in a double wide on land, which was great, off of Locust Hill Road, Highway 290 up there. And yeah, you know, my parents were just, you know, young. They were just young and, you know, hardworking, and they had a challenging divorce that, you know, brought forth a lot of emotions for both of them. And, you know, the joke in my family is that I raised them. And so it was a lot of back and forth with custody stuff and different stuff. And so like the way that I received attention and affection from my parents was I learned how to play the violin. And that's how that kind of started, and in my perfectionism and accuracy and different types of things. And that was what I did since I was about 7 years old. And I was able to do that, live with friends for a couple of years. My parents didn't have the time or capacity to get me to private lessons in the Fine Arts Center and this place and this place and this place, all the places I needed to go that they were supportive of. And so that began that journey. And like I said, I had a younger brother, and I expressed my emotions with perfectionism and being great at school. And he was very angry at the time and went through a lot and had a hard time during school. And you know, I went and got I have a bachelor's degree. I left home when I was 17 to get that. I got a music scholarship, music performance specifically. And I never really moved back. I never moved back after that. Maybe a short stint in 2008 when I graduated, like a couple months. And I have a good relationship with my mom now. And it's changed a lot. There were several years where we didn't speak, and I needed to work through some things. Therapy, I'm a big advocate for therapy, and I was a big high achiever, made really good grades, got good scholarship, and I was, despite all of those things that I went through, different houses, lots of different moves, you know, alcoholism within my family system and the people that my parents were dating as well, and I made it my mission, I'm never going to be like that. I would always say that. And so I didn't really drink for a long time. And then I met Andrew in 2009, and, you know, we were all into different hobbies. And, you know, with cigars often comes scotch and bourbon and whiskey. And I'll never forget, when I was 21 years old, I worked for Charter Communications. And there was a leader there, Mark Spillman. He was wonderful. And I went to his office one day in the Glass Palace over there off 385. And I said, Mark, how do I get into this seat? And he said, you got to learn how to play golf, smoke cigars, and drink whiskey.
That sounds easy.
And let me tell you, I took that seriously. I immediately went home and found some golf lessons for my husband and I to attend at the time at Furman. And then I was already in cigars, so we were at a leg up there. And by God, I made it my mission to learn everything about scotch and whiskey, and, you know, and then it's so funny because I end up married to my husband's family founded Maker's Mark.
What? What is happening right now?
He is a Samuels. Yeah, his grandfather was William Samuels. And so we have a big wall of Maker's Mark. He has number 1 of 4 of an etched bottle of Maker's Mark and these beautiful pieces. And he has like hand drawn, and his cousin Rob is the CEO. And
hang on. Wait, is this is your former husband?
This is my current husband.
Current husband.
David, yeah.
David. We should talk.
Yeah, he grew up on Star Hill Farm, actually. He grew up there, and his mom, Leslie, founded the tour program with Maker's Mark, and we have this beautiful photo of her that I had made. I found in our move, I found all of these artifacts that you can never get again.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of them was a coat of arms that his grandmother, Marjorie, sewed for him. Sewed for them, and we had it framed, and there's these original like Maker's Mark's Christmas cards that we put in frames, like stuff you cannot get.
Yeah.
And so we went up to see the big Chihuly exhibit. So that Chihuly is very good friends, the glassmaker, very good friends with the Samuels and Rob, and so they had some installations, and so they did a big installation. It was my first visit there last fall. And it was a wonderful visit. They took us around on this tour. And it's so much more than alcohol, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
They do regenerative farming there. They're partnering with universities to farm their land, the bees.
The tobacco farmers do all that stuff in the foreign countries. And like the world is hell-bent on wiping out tobacco.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah. Anyway.
But it's been really fun to learn about that and his family and how he grew up on Star Hill Farm. And unbelievable.
So I'm going to ask you this now, and then I want to continue your journey to sobriety and like the difficulties you faced and how you eventually kind of overcame. And I asked this because I'm some personal investment. You said that you have a good relationship, or did you say, I don't know if you said good or if it's improved with your mom
Yeah.
now. So, I went through a divorce after I moved to South Carolina from Southern California. Was very difficult on my children. I have 4 kids. You met the youngest one earlier today. It was very, like, the relationship I have with my 2 oldest children is, might be TMI for the podcast, but I'm not going to give any details, but it's been very hard. Like you said, y'all didn't speak for a few years. Well, neither did we.
Yeah.
And you're the daughter, she's the mom. So the roles I'm asking about are reversed because I'm the father of these children. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I mean, because I love them.
Yeah.
So in the repairing of the relationship with your mom, who started that? Like, where does it, did you reach out? She reach out? Like, how did that happen?
I did. I reached out after 2 years of not speaking. And there was a moment, and that was a part of my sobriety journey, Chris, is I had not spoken to her for several years. And there have been times where I'm not speaking with my father now, my dad now. And there have been times where I haven't spoken to him. I was speaking to him, and he was very gracious to me during a very difficult time. I came to live. He outfitted a whole 1,800 square foot basement apartment at his home, and he really put up, he and his wife, my stepmother, Deanna, put up with a lot of what I would consider low bottom alcoholism for me. And then I moved from Hendersonville to Asheville, and I was talking to my therapist, like, I think I may have a problem with alcohol because I wasn't a daily drinker. But there were times where I could stop for 3 or 4 months, did some powerlifting, and I did cuts and masses and all of these type of physical things. I did all the physical stuff. I wouldn't drink for 4 months. And then, I would, go out, 2 beers, no big deal. I'm fine. We're not alcoholic. And so in that, I think end of November, in 2021, my therapist was like, well, if you think you're an alcoholic, stop drinking. And so I stopped drinking for 45 days, and I was at a new challenging job. Of course, I know how to pick them. And we mutually separated, and I, got a severance agreement, and that gave me some really nice runway. And I told my girlfriend about it, and she's like, yeah, come have a couple of beers at this place in Asheville. And so I had 2 beers, and I was like, after 45 days, I'm like, oh, I'm good. And then that Saturday, I went over to her house early to help her prepare for the party, and I was not good. And that evening, for better or for worse, I drove drunk in a blackout. And I made it home. And I woke up. That was the last drink that I had, January 15th, 2022. And I woke up that next morning, and there was a higher power with me, Chris, for sure, of whom I choose to call God. There was definitely a God with me in that moment that I had felt had forsaken me since my parents got divorced. It was a big contentious item. My father wanted to go to this church. My mom wanted to go to this church for very different reasons. And so I affiliated that spirituality, religious journey with that much strife, and saw how much riff it was in my household. And thought God had really abandoned me, especially since my divorce. We were together for 10 years, and we grew so much together, bought and sold homes and master's degree, building our career together. My true soulmate, cigars, like every project that I wanted to do a cake baking business. He supported that. I want to do this jewelry, like all the things, make cigar clocks, all these different things. And I really, turned my back, from God. And then there was something that told me that morning when I woke up in just complete disarray, not knowing how I got home, not knowing who I called, not knowing who I text message that said, call your mother. And by some act of God, literally, I wasn't blocked because we had blocked each other. Again, 2 years. And I called her and I couldn't hold it back. And I said, I think I can't stop drinking. And she said, well, why don't you try to go to some of those meetings? Your uncle has been sober for 5 years or so. Why don't you try to go to some of those meetings? And that was really, honestly, the extent of the conversation. And that day I started going to 12-step meetings.
You're older, in this journey, in this reconciliation moment with your mom, which seems to be, I don't know, were you thinking about, up until that point, had you been thinking about reaching out to your mom, or were things dead and it was just like, all right, I have this really bad experience. I'm surprised I'm not dead because, my words, I mean, you drive home, you don't remember the drive home.
Oh.
It's totally block.
Or killed somebody else.
Or killed somebody else. And it's like light bulb moment, or you feel God prodding you.
Yeah.
You call your mother.
Right.
So, but was it even a thought in your mind leading up to that moment in time? And when I say, I'm not talking immediately, but like over the weeks and months before then, had it been on your mind about reaching out to your mom?
Yeah. And I think that even the period before 12-step program of the clarity without the alcohol for those 45 days, I had a lot of time to sit with myself, not in a bar or not distracted or that judgment being clouded by, whatever. And I think what was actually setting in for me is this like deep loneliness and yearning for some connection. And I'll be honest with you, like the thought never stopped crossing my mind to reach out. But there was also this boundary that I'd set with myself that when we had interactions, they were so painful to both of us that I don't know if I can put myself in that much pain or, her in that much pain. And I'll tell you, like, I think in that 2-year period, she went and got some therapy herself because in conversations before, I just never felt heard because her way of communicating and relating was every time I told a story, and this still happens today from both of us, is, well, that was always the response. It was not to validate or say, I can see how that might be hard. It was, well, I did it, just we go into relational comparison and there was no intention to one up and so to speak. And it's really interesting that you say this with your kids because my husband went through the same thing with his, had a divorce and he has grown children, 26 and 22. And he has spent several years repairing and showing up in little ways, from a very challenging divorce and seeing him go through that and seeing the very, visiting or a big way that he had started to repair things with his daughter. He was a builder for 20 years. And so she had this bathroom that needs to be remodeled. And he's very skilled at that and has all the tools. And so he saw it as such an opportunity to reconnect with her, and they're tiling the bathroom together. And he would tell me, we were in early dating there, and that's actually how we matched on Bumble. Is he was in Asheville, he was living in Landrum. I would never drive to Landrum, and I told him that. How did you come up on my feed? That mile radius thing was not working. And so he was actually spending time with her, and he was vulnerable enough in our early dating to tell me about not talking for several years and just the little ways to be supportive and show up that he's been able to repair that.
Well, it's hard. I think things are, at least with my oldest daughter, moving somewhat in the right direction. There's a little more communication. There's a little more, she came and spent about 4 days here at the house a couple of weeks ago, and I was shocked. I'm very grateful, but I was blown out of my mind that she would ask to come do that.
Is she in California?
No, she lives with her mother in Walhalla.
Oh, okay.
But she, when we moved here, she went into middle school in 8th grade. I spent 1 year in 8th grade and then went into the high school. And she was in the band the whole time. And now she's going to Western Carolina University to be a music major. She's been accepted into the marching band there. She wants to teach music.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And I need you to, I don't know, my youngest daughter, she played violin for 1 year in the middle school. And she did really well at it, got an award or two. She didn't like it. And she's tried chorus last year in 7th grade. And I love her to death, but singing's not her strong suit, which is fine. I want her to go back to the violin. But I'm like, I was disappointed when she said she wanted to leave it, but I told her, look, I would like you to do this, but I support you. Try new things.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to sing, sing. Maybe one day you'll want to go back and do the violin. But come to find out, she said she didn't really like her teacher.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much the violin,
That happens.
the teacher.
Yeah.
Like,
strings
but
people
it's
can be
strings
kind of
are hard.
sticklers.
Yeah.
They're,
the violin's a very precise instrument. There's no frets, and it's tough. I've tried to teach myself to play the violin before. It's not easy. Over the course of years, I've played a little bit of the French horn, cornet, the trumpet, the baritone, I play the drums. I've dabbled on the guitar and the ukulele and the piano. But anyway, with my daughter, like, when you're reconnecting with your mom, it sounds like you're older, because my oldest daughter is 19. So there's still a lot of youth and still a lot of just the ignorance of youth.
Yeah.
Which is, that's not an unkind term. It's just, an uneducated about a lot of how relationships work.
Yeah.
And things that happen between her mother and I, and I just trying to, like, how do we repair what we can and salvage what we can and reestablish a meaningful relationship with my oldest daughter and my oldest son. And look, I mean, by the time my divorce was finalized, I was married 17 years.
Yeah.
With those kids. And it's just a terrible thing. Everybody hurts. There's no winners.
Right.
And I don't know, just to hear you say, like, my relationship with my mom now is good, gives me hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And she shows up consistently, right, for me. Like, she comes to the gatherings. Just had a ladies' summer garden party on the first day of summer. So we did a summer solstice, and she was there, in advance, and she's making me this beautiful canopy for my flower cart. And I think the things that have been most meaningful for me are actually the smaller gestures and, like, helping me feel heard. And I will tell you that a part of my repairing with her was in my 2nd year of sobriety, Chris. I knew, again, the privilege of being older and 36, that, okay, I had blamed my parents for a lot. They were responsible for everything that happened to me, and so I worked through an amends process in a 12-step program where I had someone that was like, I think we should take a closer look at how you may have been responsible for as well. And so there were things in childhood where I had someone say to me, well, how I said, how am I responsible for something that had happened in childhood? And she looked at me and she said, you're not, but you're responsible for how long you're going to carry it around your neck.
Right.
For the rest of your life. And so in my 2nd year of sobriety, I set out on a mission, and I spent time with both of my parents. And I asked them questions about their childhood. And then we got to, and this was several, like, weekends of me coming down from Asheville or them coming up. And then I got to asking questions about sharing with them my experiences for this divorce and separation. And then I asked them, what was your experience like? And what was wild is that there were things as a child that I had convinced myself that had happened. Chris,
It did not happen.
I was convinced that these things happened. And I had to become open and willing and have the humility enough to be like, maybe that was just a talk track. I convinced myself of to stay in this much pain and resentment. And so I went into those discussions. Hey, tell me about your childhood. By the way, this situation happened during the divorce and it's really been eating at me.
Yeah.
What was your experience like? And Chris, I learned that their experience was completely different than mine. And I was okay with that because there are some things in this 12-step program that taught me that we can have resentments for things that are real or imagined.
Yeah.
And that was a huge turning point for how I saw them as like deeply human, how they made these decisions from their childhoods, how their parental systems work. And it really did a lot for those relationships, learning more about them.
Yeah. Well, I've learned, and look, I mean, I've done a lot of personal growing since the divorce. And, you know, it was not pretty. You know, it was very difficult, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of frustration and anger and sadness and breaking but I've done a lot of growing and learning, you know, taking personal responsibility for my choices and, you know, and and here's the real thing, like learning to take responsibility for your choices and your actions, irrespective of what your spouse did.
That's it.
Because I can only control myself, right?
Yeah.
So there should never, like, if you're going to take responsibility and you're going to mature and your child or your therapist asks you, why did you do this? It can't be, well, because it can't be that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I've done a lot of soul searching and hurting and tears and repenting and talking to God and prayer and just other people about that. And just, you know, over time I came to that realization of, you know, I know the things that I did wrong, irrespective of what was her choices and actions, right? I'm only responsible for my actions and my thought patterns and my speech. But the other thing is that I would love to, hopefully, and one day I will get to have some of these conversations with my kids, but it's just the whole, like, when your children want to know what happened and you explain to them what happened, I want to be able to help them understand that you need to accept this strictly as an explanation of events, not a justification of events. I can give you an apology and I can be sincere and mean it, and I can do that if that's what you need. But I want you just to understand what was happening and why I did X, Y, and Z. Doesn't make it right. It's just, this is what happened.
These are the facts.
And this is how I was feeling.
Yeah.
These are the facts.
That's
now,
right.
we can deal with the right and the wrong and mom and dad are both wrong. Mom and dad are both right. Mom, like, whatever it is, but learn to accept the chain of events and why we did what we did, and then we can deal with the morality of it at a different time.
Yeah.
You know, if we need to. And I think that's I hope to get there.
Yeah, and I think that you will, because you're already going through the grief process. Like, I was separated in 2018 and got divorced in 2019, you know, the year waiting period. And I made decisions about getting in a relationship super soon. And I was trying to grieve while in a relationship with somebody else.
That's not great.
And it wasn't great. But you know what? I could not be alone. You know, I was with this person, you know, for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I just really, you know, and so I had to take some time to, like, you know, work on myself, a lot of therapy, and, you know, and take responsibility for my part, regardless of what somebody else's part was. And it was interesting, like, when I shared my experience with my family, I kind of preface it with, like, look, I'm sharing with you my experience. I'm not saying that it's 100% factual, but I want you to know, like, this was where I was in those moments, and so I made it really clear, and that's not to invalidate their own, but it was also just to say, like, I'm also open to hearing, where you were, what your part of that experience was. And the key to this all is not taking it personally, and just like really being a witness to their experience and not agreeing with it, right? Because I think that goes into like some codependency, and just saying, thank you for sharing. Like, and in some ways, like feeling those emotions, but in many ways, just holding space for that conversation to unfold.
Yeah.
And again, I told you, I'm not speaking to my father right now. He's gone through a very difficult time losing both of his parents recently. And his reaction to those events, he's, spends a lot of time alone. And I got some of my best qualities and my worst qualities from my father. We were best friends growing up. And I think that was a lot of our toxicity, is because we were so close and we're so much alike. It's like, oh, you cross us, we're cutting you off, and so I learned that. And so we're very similar in that way. And he's a wonderful artist, and I got my music part from him, and we used to play violin we did Simon Says on the violin, and he insisted that I take fiddle lessons. You're going to learn Orange Blossom Special. You can learn Suzuki, but you're going to fiddle lessons, and so and those are some really special moments, and vinyls were a big part of my time with him, music and the band Camel and prog rock and all of those type of things. I get so much of that from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said, I'm gonna stick on the sobriety thing for just another minute.
Yeah.
Funny. I don't know. It's not a funny question. It kind of is. How difficult is it being sobriety when you're like basically married into the Maker's Mark family? I mean, it's just like,
well, we don't live in Kentucky,
sure.
So we're kind of far removed from that, and it's not difficult because I don't drink no matter what.
Right, you just made a choice, so it's not.
It's just like I've made a decision, and I also had a spiritual awakening, which means that simply put, that I have undergone a profound change in my reaction to life.
Yeah, like
my coping mechanism was at some points food. I was a very heavy child. I've lost 175 pounds, and so it was food. That was my first coping. And then it was perfectionism and violin. And then at some points it's been shopping. And at some points it's been dating. It's like you could see a pattern here. And at some point it became alcohol is how I learned how to cope. Now, I don't think that I'm terminally unique. I think that a lot of people suffer from what I call a spiritual malady. I always felt alone and separate and apart. I'm over 6 feet tall. You can't tell it while I'm sitting down. But
I can tell when she knocked on my door.
That's why I always stand like some measure away from the door, because otherwise it's like, oh, wow, you're a woman and you're over 6 feet, And so I think that, now I help people. I help women get sober. That's a part of my story I have since I've been 9 months sober, and I stay very embedded into sober community. My husband is sober as well, and it's not hard because that is not my response anymore. And now it's, sometimes better than others. Pausing and praying. I say a lot of the serenity prayer. I do, what we call a third step prayer is, free me from the bondage of self so that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties so that victory over them may bear witness to those that I may help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life, which is simply put, I'm going to have difficulties, the acknowledgement of those, and remove those so that I can better serve God and my other fellows and human beings. And so staying really rooted in service and community and connection.
Mm-hmm. They're just, I don't know. there's a lot going on there.
But I'd love to drink at Maker's 46. That was my jam. Okay. I loved also. I loved Four Roses Single Barrel. I was a Maker's Mark ambassador when I was really big into cigars. They still send me the annual Christmas present. So it's, it's not hard. It's not hard, but there are parts that I really miss about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like
coming up, I went to a whiskey, a bourbon club the other week with this manufacturing group, and there's like this great exclusive Penelope. You can't get it. The rep has brought it in, and all these people are, oh, look at this, wow. And then I can be able to smell it now, and there's no temptation because that has been removed from me.
Yeah, you just know.
And it's just like, man, this is awesome, and I don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there gets that place in your life where you, however you find it, when there's satisfaction in the soul.
Yeah.
With who you are, with your life, and of course, for me as a Christian and what I believe, it is Jesus, it is Christ. Like, the passage with the woman at the well, right? Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever shall drink of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. I don't need this stuff. I do, like the cigars. I don't need them. I enjoy them. I don't need them. I'm not trying to fill a hole in my soul with whiskey or money or cigars or sex or sports or politics or even family. Or my social life. I don't have to be I am at peace and I am at rest. I'm like the maniac of Gadara, whom Jesus went across the sea for this one guy who was possessed of legion. And when Jesus was finished with him, he sat and he was clothed and he was in his right mind. He wasn't, as before, running around the graveyard, crying in the tombs, and he was naked and cutting himself with stones. But after he had this encounter with Jesus, he was at peace. And so you don't need, okay, I don't need Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
I can smell it and it still smells good and it's cool, but I don't need it. And I just, inner peace is something that I hope every person finds, and I hope they find it in Christ. But if they don't find it there, I hope they find it somewhere, because it leads to a life of meaningfulness and happiness.
Yeah. And they say that once the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Right? And that's it for me.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm curious about something you said. About your childhood and the violin and perfection. And you said, obviously what went on with your parents is very difficult. It's very difficult on children. You said your brother was angry. And that's how he was dealing, right, I guess, or trying to cope or whatever. And yours was through violin.
Yeah.
Explain that to me, though. How? How are you... It just sounds like you're working out your grief through the playing of the violin.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was a lot of that. Music was a way that I expressed emotions. And I love romantic era pieces. I'm very, passionate type of player, and so romantic era was kind of a specialty for me, and dumped in all the emotions. I would play 6 to 8 hours a day. I mean, if I had nails that were any sort of long, my teacher would clip them, any type of way. I would have marks in there, calluses, of course. And it was so interesting that I didn't know that about myself until I got to college. And then I started playing in an orchestra. I went to Georgia Southern, and I did not have exposure to the violin as a profession yet, Chris. I mean, I played different halls and stuff like that, but not as a profession. And what I experienced at that time was, oh, well, we have to do all of these things and go and spend time with these patrons and donors and all of these things. And there was this part of me, and I now learned to say this, that I was unable to do that because all I just wanted to play was like feel the music on the stage. And I was not mature enough at the time to bridge the gap between I played to live, I played to live to this is how I earn a living. Because it seemed so contradictory in my person. Well, what do you mean I have to show up 2 hours early in this costume and ask rich people for money? When I would play, when my mom, left for a couple of weeks, and, that's what I did. And I was living with my friends and going around and playing in all these type of, like, I played, my emotions, and I could not bridge the gap. Like, I could not, I went to school for music performance, but, and I have a minor in music performance, but I got an English literature degree because I could not mentally and emotionally do it for a living, Chris. I couldn't. And I received, admittedly, the reason that I worked so hard at it is because I received a lot of praise from my mom. She had high expectations because she never got those opportunities, honestly. And so she had high expectations for us about how we're going to be, like a lot of moms are. And she wanted the best for us. And so I did dance for a long time, and then I did violin, and that was the way that I received love and affection and acknowledgement from her. She would tell people, "Oh, my daughter's first chair," and right or wrong, right? Like, and sometimes I look back on those moments and I'm like, she was kind of living vicariously. Like, she never got attention. She was kind of in the backdrop. And I was in the limelight all the time, first chair, and I'm, doing all these things, and, concert masters of, different stuff. But that's how I was really conditioned, self-induced, to get love from her.
The more I think about it, and I've thought about this over the years, like when a parent says, I just want the best for my children. I mean, it's a common statement. What does that actually mean? you know what I mean? Like, and I've had experiences with this, like, you trying to decide if I want to say this. Well, let's just put it this way. Like, in a biblical sense, some people have, like, I've heard people say something like, if a parent's, observing their adult child and they're doing X, Y, or Z, and it's not good, right? And I've heard parents say, I just want God's best for you, so don't do this, right? What does that mean by God's best? And I understand, like, if we do certain things that are, that would be wrong, sinful, whatever you want to call it, there's consequences. There are the natural consequences of whatever happens in this world. Like if you steal something and get caught, the natural consequences, you're going to go to jail. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, if you, but do we think, like, God is gracious and God is merciful and God is kind. He's also just. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that just because you mess up here and there, that it's like God's up there saying, well, man, I had really, really big things planned for you, but now, like, what does it mean when we say, I just want the best for my children? Like, I've talked to my children about what I want for them, and what I want for them has much more to do with who they are and their character versus what they do for a living.
Yeah, totally.
That's what I consider to be best. Like, who are you as a person? And where's your moral compass?
Right.
And what's your relationship like with Christ? You know, like if you do whatever you want to do, like vocationally, so long as it's morally respectable.
Yeah.
And be wise with your choices and your money. But like, I really have trouble because I want what's best for my children. It's such a nebulous statement.
Yeah. And like and I think it goes back to the topic of humility, right? Like what makes me think that I know what's best? You know? And so I think like, you know, it's interesting when I was dating David, my current husband, I had, you know, my ex-husband picked me up from a hotel that I was living in with my mom after a familial domestic violence situation at the home. And it was interesting. What I needed at the time was I needed rescuing. And so I picked a person who could do that. And it wasn't until I stopped picking men who made a lot of money or who were engineers or lawyers or politicians or doctors, and I really started looking at someone's core values and whether they align with mine. And the conversations that I had with my husband were, okay, this is kind of a partner inventory for myself on things that I think from a value system. This is not a wish list. It's very different. But the key for me is these are the things that I am trying to be myself. And so it's like I can't call in a partner and I can't attract a partner of these same values if I'm not willing to work towards these values and these actions at all. And so we had those type of conversations. When we were dating, like, you know, what are your views on finance?
Oh.
You know, and so some of these, and of course it's both of our, you know, we've been married before. And so it's like, these are the different types of conversations. Now we had a lot of fun, but these were the core conversations on the value system.
Those are the conversations you should have.
Yes, we need to have. And you know what? If you would have told me that at 21, I would have said, I don't want to hear it. It takes what it takes. It took me going through these multiple dating of rich people and this and chasing after this and really Disney complex is what I call it. Now I do love me some Disney. I'm not throwing shade, but I was taught.
I'll throw shade.
Yeah, well, true.
All the shade.
You know. So what I was taught though is that I need to be rescued. You know, and there's a knight in shining armor waiting for me, you know, and that's not true. Yeah. I can rescue myself. I can take care of myself. And I want a partner and I can be alone and I can be by myself and not feel utterly alone.
Yeah. Here's my shade at Disney.
Yeah.
In all the Disney princess movies, they teach the same lesson over and over. You have a young girl whose father is an idiot. She doesn't have to listen to him. She runs off and does the exact thing her father said she should not do. Disaster ensues. But eventually, she just overcomes and everything is right. And daddy comes and is like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really believe in you. That's not real life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not real life.
No.
Like if you have a father for a reason, and I get it. Look, just generally speaking, not applicable to everybody's scenario all the time because there's fathers in this world that are complete dirtbags. I get
totally.
It. But generally speaking, your father has lived life longer than you and probably has more discernment and understanding. And if you go and do something really stupid he told you not to do, there's going to be consequences sometimes that cannot be fixed.
Yeah.
And you are going to hamstring your life.
Right. Or anyone, not even a father, like someone with more experience than you.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm oftentimes calling people, I have a lot of friends who are a lot older than me. And the reason that is because my community has gone through the experience that I am probably going to go through.
Yeah.
And I can save myself a lot of pain by exercising humility and picking up the phone call. It's like, hey, this is what's going on. You know, what suggestions do you have for me? And I will hear one of two things. Well, here's what I did. Here's what I would think about. And here was my outcome. Or I hear this. I don't have any experience with that, but I know this person, you should give them a call.
Yeah.
Like willingness to also not speak above their experience level about things, which I think is really important.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
It's important. They're like, he that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Proverbs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So talk with people who have the experience, that have dealt with the situation that you are currently in. Just that's a very wise thing to do. I had a follow-up question, but listening to you talk, it totally just I don't know.
Sorry about that.
No, I don't know where it was.
I may have some ADHD a little bit. Yeah.
Well, do you still play the violin?
You know, that is one area that I am continuing to be challenged by, that I think is imminent in some way to return to. So here's kind of what's happened. So I taught private lessons after I finished college, and I did that for maybe 7 years or so. And then my HR career took off. And I have a 1733 Carlo Bergonzi. That's how old it is, and it's very beautiful, and I love it, and it is like one of my prized possessions. One piece back, beautiful ruby red type of color. I love it, and each time that I've tried to play, it brings back this part of perfectionism that I still wrestle with, and that's classical music. I saw a guy, Dixon's violin. Great, worth looking up. And he told my story on stage at the Grey Eagle in my first year of sobriety, and I cried the whole show. He grew up classically trained violinist, and they told you how to hold it, how to this, how long this, how you could hold your bow, all of this, and you were corrected. Hour and a half lessons, corrected the whole time. That was the deal in classical violin. And he went to he's a patented engineer, did all the things, did all the things you're supposed to, and living life to the script. And he was still unhappy. And so now he's a touring musician, playing violin and pieces that he makes up and everything that he wants to. And I have not been able to overcome that perfectionism. And so what I did last year was I was like, let me go about this through a different angle. And so I started playing, what if I don't play classical music? What if I start back with playing something adjacent? And so my husband bought me this app and an iPad. That was one of my Christmas gifts. And I started experimenting with jazz violin. What is jazz violin? And so I've kind of started dabbling, because I find that less of my, going back to the shame messages, like, oh, I used to be so much better, or I used to be this or that, or, oh my God, I could play this Dvorak piece, it happens less. And so I have allowed myself some more space through the creative process by playing jazz or different, iterations of things. So I don't play as much as I'd like to. I think that there's still a part of my healing journey there that I'd like to explore moving forward.
Yeah, well, the perfectionism, as you said, was basically a way for you to work out issues with your mom.
Yeah, my family system overall.
So if you pick up the violin to play classical music, you're back there emotionally.
100%.
And mentally.
Yes. And so I think that there continues to be some things to work on. It's been very slow, which is okay. I'm okay with that. Going back, I want to trudge the road of happy destiny. I don't want to be thrown back to how things were. And so that's why I was like, well, maybe I'll do something adjacent and explore a different part of myself to have a return that feels good in my person,
Yeah. Something else and we're kind of random now, but I don't really care. My show's just very casual.
That's okay.
It's super interesting. Something else you shared with me about your first marriage was that you said that you were so afraid, and you made the statement that you were afraid that you weren't enough.
Yeah.
Enough what?
Mm-hmm.
If that's an okay question.
Yeah, no, it's an okay question. I think I have spent a long time enough of a woman. I, even to this day, wrestle with the dichotomy of masculine and feminine. I grew up, a lot of, my mom is in her 60s, and she saw a lot of her friends and didn't necessarily experience it herself, but the man was always working or went off to war and never came back. And so I grew up with these messages of like, strong, independent woman. You got to be a strong, independent woman. You got to be. And the only thing I ever wanted to be was a CEO. Like I didn't want to have children. That didn't feel safe to me because I didn't want to put a child through what I experienced. And I didn't trust myself. And so I think I've always had this like push-pull of masculine and feminine. And I think that there was some time of over-rotation where I was going to be a really high earner and I was going to do all this. And I've kind of like swung into and sucked up all the energies in the room, whether that be masculine and feminine. And I've always had this question mark of myself as like, am I too much? It's like so interesting as like, am I too much? And that was masking the feelings of not being enough. Like not being enough of a woman. I'm not soft enough because I'm direct and I'm clear in my communication. And at this point, I know very well of who I am. And I've even I had relationships after my marriage where these men, and I was talking to some girlfriends about it yesterday. They would come to my house like fourth or fifth date or something, and they would look around, and it's very well appointed. You have good style, very similar. And, high earner, educated. And they're like, I just don't think I can measure up to this, and so then I would kind of recede. And so it's like, well, I'm not soft enough, but I got to be strong. And so I think like that was all coming from a place of feeling very insecure and really resting firmly in femininity. And I think some Disney confusion about what it means to be feminine. And like in the cigar world, I loved it. I wore dresses and I got a lot of attention and I knew a lot about cigars. I knew a lot of people in cigars and most of them were men. And I loved it because I felt like I could firmly be in my femininity in that space. And it wasn't oversaturated. And so I think like all of those type of things, we're coming from a place of really not being enough. And so I think that drove a lot of fear, and my performative nature.
So what does it mean to be feminine?
You haven't
figured it out yet?
I think it's just I've learned that it's really on a spectrum. And I think like I don't think it matters to me as much, these definitive terms. And I think what matters to me now is to thine own self be true. Having a relationship with a higher power, of which I choose to call God, and being of service. And I in high school, admittedly, in middle school and high school, I spent 7 years being like gothic. All I wore was black all the time, black lipstick, all the things. And I went through my Hot Topic phase, and listened to metal. I was, this huge metalhead, Dimmu Borgir and all the, Slayer and all of these things, and very angsty and also a classical musician at the same time, which, okay. And so I think now for me, my femininity is not that important. And that as long as I'm being true to myself and my core values and I'm not eroding those, like I'm okay.
Yeah.
I am enough. I always have enough. And I have been shown in my surrender to God and being of service that I am okay and that I will be provided for.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that, just from my personal perspective and point of view, is like I'm just I would not be, because you're using terms like, you're not sure that you're soft enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're very direct.
Yeah.
Just direct and upfront. And he said, some dude walks in your place and it's very well designed and he's worried about, I can't measure up to this. And like for me though, is that doesn't, when you know who you are, I know who I am, I know what I believe, I know what my values are, I don't care. That's really nice design. Good job.
Right.
You know, that's great. Like, and for me, like, it's just, and every man probably wants a lot of general things out of a woman, and then each man will want some specific things depending on what they like and don't like, right? But it's like, I want a woman that loves me. That's all I want.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what people want.
Yeah.
They just want to be loved. They want to be cared about.
Right.
And the rest of it is just on the periphery, and we can work on those things. And, you know, like a lot of the gender specific roles that came from, like you said, like the men went out to work or went off to war.
Yeah.
And the women, you know, kept the house, and that a lot of that has to do with just basically the difference in the physicality of the sexes, especially because, you know, back in the agrarian days, the farming days, like farm work is very physical.
Yeah.
And very hard. And a woman, generally speaking, just doesn't have the stamina that a man has. And so it made sense for the woman to be, all right, she's keeping the house and kids, making the meals, and the guy's plowing the field with his horse, and he's building the barn, and he's doing all that stuff. But we don't live in that world anymore. We sit behind a computer.
Yeah, right.
You know, doing your HR thing.
Yeah.
Doing your number spreadsheet so I can list this house. It doesn't take what it used to take, and so the lines have become very blurred. But at the end of the day, like, okay, if I have this woman who's very direct as a guy, it's like, you should like that because she says what she means.
Well, you know where you stand all the time.
She means what she says. It's like, you know, it's just like, and that's, you're generally speaking, like how the male mind works. It's very like analytical. Here's what I see. Here's the truth too. And so I don't know, just if you're secure in your values and in yourself and in what you believe, I don't really see much problem. But I don't know, everybody has their hangups.
Well, I know, Chris, like now looking back on that, this is retrospectively, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so I was taking that really personally, and I was really insecure, you know, and I now know that that was really more about him and about how he felt about himself, you know. And now, you know, of course I still have that part of me that comes up that has the desire to be liked, right? And so I had to have those conversations with myself. Well, do we like them? You know, and that's what was a game changer in my relationships, especially dating, is I went to these dates before being married, of course. And I was like, I would leave there and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they liked me. And it wasn't until 2020, it was the first time that I'd done a lot of work on this. And I had the thought, do I like him? You know,
bigger question.
It was a huge pivotal shift, you know, and that was kind of the fog lifting, and that transcended to a whole lot of other relationships, including my parents, right? Including like not, you know, chasing their affection and not, you know, always like, well, what do you think? What do you think? And asking for their opinion, right? Like, hold on, let me take some time with myself and my higher power and God, and like call some other people with different levels of experience and ask them. You know, and ask, you know, talk with God, prayer, you know, talking to God, meditation, listening for God, you know. So,
well, I would not want to be in that world that, you know, and I've thought about it a lot just because my wife was this close to death 15 months ago, you know, and just looking around at the way the world is. And, you know, I'm a 46-year-old guy, and I'm like, I would not want to be out in that world now, having matured over the course of 46 years and knowing your values and something, you know, we were kind of chatting about earlier. And, you know, at 21 years old, you're still developing your values, you know.
Totally.
It's like so hard. And like, I had a conversation with somebody not that long ago, like if my wife had passed and I was back in that world, it would take me a long time to get back in that world. But I would like, I would not know how to go out. At some point in a relationship with a woman, to have these conversations and to not feel like a daggum job interview. Like, all right, how do you handle money? Check. How do you, and it's like, what's your values? And one of the things I've often learned or thought about is like, and it's not so imperative when you're 46 years old, if you're seeing somebody that you like, meeting the parents is not as big of a deal, but I would be very curious, very, very interested to watch in a scenario like that, how this woman treats her father.
Yeah.
And how does she talk to him? And how does she talk to her mother? I'm going to super pay attention to that because that tells me a lot.
And if not, why? Like if there is no relationship, right? Because those are complicated. Well, help me connect with that. And mine was boundaries about how I'm going to be spoken to. It's like,
oh, that's big.
I mean, like, I'm not a little girl anymore. And so the way that you're speaking to me now, and this is anybody, I get to choose. Like, I don't have to stay in situations where there's, any type of verbal, abuse or, and I think it's easy to slip for parents to slip back into those behaviors because this is how we've known each other relationally. And maybe one person has grown out of their patterns and maybe one person hasn't. And so I think like, I'll tell you just in that vein, I was always afraid that I would never find a partner because I came from a broken home, that I wouldn't be accepted because I didn't have that really good family system, and I think it's really important. I think it's also really telling for how people relate to the world, and so I think there's a lot of validity in that, and I think at some point, not to be too dark, but once you get older, you don't have parents at some point. Like my father-in-law is 83 and I have a great relationship with him. And that's been really, really lovely. And I've had, with my ex-husband, I had a good relationship with his parents. And to the point where I encouraged him to call them more, and similar as my husband now. And I think women just have a tendency to call, their parents more in some instances. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of friends who are either going through divorces or have been divorced and they're not doing the online dating thing. They're doing things like, Dinner Club Greenville Dinner Club and I'm an ambassador for that. And so they have different in August there's actually 3. There's one for 20s and 30s and 30s and 40s and 40s plus. And so they're like small dinners where you're assigned, you have 6 people that you go to dinner with, and there's an after party where they go and socialize. And so there's a lot for that now that's not just, online.
Yeah.
So,
well, thankfully, I don't need that.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
I'm not
Love
doing
being
that.
married.
Yeah, being married is great.
Yeah.
So you finally have arrived at a place where you are enough.
Yeah.
And that you belong.
Yes.
You have a place you belong. You are enough for yourself and for your husband. How's that feel?
It feels very peaceful and calm. And, in my life, there have been periods of expectations for me, like everything should be great or everything was really low. And so it's like now I've reached this place of just kind of contentment. And of course there's speed bumps, right? Right. And I'm more resilient and I just feel very grounded that I am okay.
Yeah.
In this moment, right where my feet are. So when I start the future tripping, it's like, no, let's bring it back. Look down at your feet. Where are you right now? And then going into gratitude, that's so huge. And I don't do this perfectly. Like I can talk about it very empirically, but I don't do it perfectly. And sometimes it takes me longer to get into gratitude. And so that's been really helpful skill for me to develop because I wasn't raised like that. It was like, what's happened to me and stuff like that, and very into self-pity. And how can I be of service of others? And how can I express gratitude for this moment that I am enough, I have enough, and I'm going to.
Yeah. No, gratitude is, 1 Thessalonians 5, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you, is to be grateful, and to be grateful forces you to open your eyes to the blessings in your life and the good things in your life. And one of my old Bible college, the president of the Bible college I attended in Southern California used to always say that the foundation of gratitude is the expectation of nothing.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so like if you expect to get nothing, it's pretty easy to be grateful.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a parent, this is part of my nature. I have a very long leash. My patience is pretty long. But where it gets short is I do not tolerate complaining and whining. Absolutely not. And gratitude, be thankful. I will just stand on your head all day for that. You're going to be thankful. Because, like, do my children know how blessed they are? Like, you get to live in this oversized house. You've never been hungry. You've never been thirsty. You've never not had clothes. You've never, you've never had a parent that beat you or showed up drunk all the time, or like all of the things that people in this world have to deal with all the time. You haven't. And it's hard to drill that into them because they don't know any better. They've had that constantly, so I think some of the genuine gratitude takes a little bit of time and years in adulthood to finally get it, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's just even in the small things. Like, it's so easy to be grateful for these big, I got some rando check in the mail or whatever, monetary, especially financially. I know, right? hey, don't stop them from coming, people. Just keep sending them. But yeah, I think it's really, I love gardening. And so I have a really beautiful perennial garden, and I've met these people online, and I designed my garden beds with AI, and I've put them zone 8, planted them, and I've met these people online that are selling these perennials, and I go and I get to meet them, and I hear their story. And one I met last year when we moved into our house, and she says, "You know why I garden?" I said, "No." She says, "I never tell anybody this, but my son passed in COVID. And this gardening is for him." And I have that connection for life. And, I share a garden sign with her. I made my garden is Kunal's garden, and I had one made for her. And we share that connection. And I know her daughter now, and I'm a part of that. And I met a lady in Pickens to get this, rare honeycomb butterfly bush. And so I heard a part of her medical journey, and we've stayed connected. And, and so it's just like these little things. So when I see these flowers and I see that garden sign, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this new bloom on this plant that used to be this big that I got from these people. And it's like that big. And it just takes so much less to have a grateful heart now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we often use the phrase not to take things for granted? That, and the older saying, I guess, or I don't know if it's older, but it's in the same vein, that you really don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
Do you think we actually don't take things for granted? Like, my wife is a prime example. Doing her thing, living her life, very successful. Her business was exploding. Then we find out she's got a massive brain aneurysm and has a stroke, and now she's fully disabled, struggles with speech. Everything about her life has changed. She can't use half her body properly. And it's like, I have a new view on gratefulness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
Be able to wake up and just, I can do this.
Yeah.
She can't.
Right.
And this is nothing.
Yeah.
But it is to her.
Mm-hmm.
She can do this, but not with this arm and this hand. And it's like, I can't even fundamentally just use my body the way I used to. And it's like, you look back and did I take this for granted? and maybe you did, but it's like, even if you are very, very grateful for things and they're taken from you, do you feel like you would have taken them for granted?
I think that we may, like for me, I had a very serious medical episode after some black mold exposure in Asheville where I was bedridden for 8 months, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, bad. And had to throw away all of my belongings, and I was living in a very ritzy place in downtown. And I had thought, oh, I've arrived now. This beautiful downtown mountain view, city view. And I remember standing on that balcony and I said, God, please forever keep me humble. Careful, friends, and I'm telling you, 28 days later after I was living in there, I started having anaphylactic shock episodes from such a severe reaction to this. And that changed my whole perspective. I remember when I was able to kind of really get around and drive again, I was staying at a friend's house in West Asheville, and I was on the way to meet some friends early in the morning, and I had just left this wonderful gospel night at this shady bar. I didn't drink a thing. I was sober at that point, too. And these ladies come up from Newberry, and they're in their 80s on top of tables, and they're singing gospel music in this bar in West Asheville. And I stayed up way past my bedtime, and I got up that morning at 6 o'clock, and I was driving into the sunrise, and I thought to myself, I literally have nothing but in my suitcase, and I have never felt more free in my entire life. And I had all these beautiful places, all this decor, and it was all this, and I had nothing. And I did not know. I had always, since I was a little girl, I had this thought to myself, I just want to go home when I was there. I just want to go home. It's like this home was all these things. And when I was stripped of this from this mold event, Chris, I was living out of a suitcase, bouncing to different friends' places. And I had never felt more free in that moment than leaving this gospel night, waking up in the next morning so happy, riding to meet these friends, to have coffee at 7 o'clock in the morning in this beautiful sunrise. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know. I thought that all that home was, safety was, all these things with this beautiful place. And I figured out that I actually don't need any of that, and that I could just live like this and feel more free and more awakened than I had ever felt. I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah, well, we have such a small and stupid view of life. In that phrase you use, like, I'm living in downtown in this hoity-toity, and you feel like I've made it, and like, made it where? Where have I made it? Made it for what? Like, at the end of Ecclesiastes, Solomon writes, this is the whole duty of man. Fear God and keep his commandments, for God shall bring every work into judgment, whether it be good and whether it be right. And it's just like, none of this stuff matters.
Mm-hmm.
This is all like, you're going to live and you're going to die. And like, all of this is, you're going to leave it here. Like, so you made millions, and I've made tens of thousands, and then there's so many great sayings. Like, one of the ones I love is that at the end of a game of chess, the king and the pawn both go in the same box. Or an illustration. I like this one. That there was a man in a small fishing village, and he had finished his day of fishing, and he had pulled his boat up on the shore, and he was just kind of sitting back in it, relaxing, watching the sunset, having some fish. And this very wealthy businessman walked by and kind of chastised him for not being diligent. He's like, why are you just sitting here? He's like, you should be mending your nets. And, if you mend your nets, you can catch more fish, and then you can sell it and make more money and buy more nets. And eventually you can buy more boats You can have a whole fleet and you catch more fish and sell them, and you can be wealthy. And the fisherman said, and what would I do with all of that wealth? And he said, well, you could relax and enjoy your life. And he said, what do you think I'm doing? Just sitting here in my boat, enjoying the sunset. And it's just, we have this absurd view that in order to quote unquote make it means I have to make the list.
Yeah. I mean, so many things. The beautiful part about that story for me of losing all my belongings is that so I got divorced in 2019, and I retained a lot of the furniture that my ex-husband and I bought together. And I had been carting this around to Raleigh, to a new place in Greenville, to Raleigh, to Hendersonville, to Asheville. I've been carting this around like an albatross around my neck, Chris, and God removed it from me. And that was God doing for me what I can't do for myself right there, because I had told myself, I was like, oh, this is very expensive furniture. I cannot imagine spending the money to replace it now. This is good furniture. There's nothing attached to that. And I was lying to myself. And it was like the last material thread it had to be removed. Yeah. I wasn't willing through all these moves to give it up. I was willing to get a storage unit to put it in, even though I couldn't fit it, and it was just like, that's how it has to be. For me, I'm educational variety, like let go or be dragged. A lot of times I'm going to be dragged. Now, I'm a little better. I'll let go a little sooner with some road rash now. But like that was a moment of why I became so free, is that it was removed from me.
Yeah.
Took
it from you.
Yeah, it took, and that's how it is sometimes, and I was really upset in the moment, and I didn't really understand why. Oh, it's just stuff, like, oh, it's just stuff. We don't need that. But there was something else like along with that. And I needed it to happen that way.
Yeah.
Well,
there's so many lessons like that. You're talking about being bedridden for 8 months or 9 months, whatever it was. And that famous Psalm, the 23rd one, where it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. And we all have this nice image of this lovely pasture, and the sheep is laying down, the shepherd's there, and oh, it's good sheep, yay. But I'll never forget one of my Bible college professors telling a story about just him just going through this time in his life where he was really suffering and things were slowing down. And he made the statement about that verse. It says, he maketh me to lie down. He didn't encourage me to lay down. He said, oh, why don't you just take a break? No, he made him. He forced him to lie down. Because you're doing, either things are out of whack or doing too much. You're scared, like you need to stop. And if you don't have, sometimes God, like if you don't have the wisdom and the knowledge and see what I'm trying to teach you to stop, I will make you.
That's it.
Totally. It's for our betterment.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Last thing, I think, and then we'll wrap it up here. Already established, but I'll just reiterate. You now are enough, which I love, and you belong. So now that you've got these things figured out, starting to dabble and pick up the violin, successful HR career, launching into real estate, what's the future look like?
Yeah, it looks like continuing to learn how to be where I'm at and to stay married and to be happy with that. And we're in a new marriage, and so we're learning a lot about each other. To continue to go the entrepreneurial route and see, this real estate business is really taking off. I mean, in a short amount of time, I'm going to have 3 listings coming on the board. I've already had a closing. And so I'm really feeling a lot of gratitude to serve people. And for me, it's just like continuing to connect and be a part of and help other people feel a part of, continuing to help women achieve sobriety. I'm so grateful to be back in Greenville. I was living in Asheville for 5 years, and that was great. I got sober there, and a wonderful sober community, and continuing to find my place here and just be a part of this community and learn more about Greenville and continuing to believe that I am enough and I have enough and that will be true.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything we can talk about that you want to talk about?
I mean, I feel like we covered so much ground.
We covered a lot.
I mean, and you know what's wild, Chris, is like, I'm sitting here like, it just went by so quickly. I'm like, what did we talk about?
It's like almost 8:30.
You're kidding me.
No.
Like, and I feel like, there's sometimes where I like sit down with people and I'm like, I feel like I've lived so many lives. And like, I feel like you've also lived so many lives as well, yeah, no, I think I feel complete.
Good deal. Well, look, if somebody watching or listening to this episode living here in the upstate, and they are thinking about listing their home, thinking about buying a home, how can they reach you?
They can reach me by social media. So I do Jessica Eshan Realtor, or give me a call, 864-238-2291. You can just look up Eshan, Jessica Eshan, Eshan, and I will come up. Love that SEO optimization. And you can call, text me, and I'll get back to you.
Sweet.
Cool.
I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Awesome.
Because you're HR for somebody, so nobody would need you there, but they might need you real estate.
Yeah.
Like, do you need to give out your HR stuff?
Yeah. So I think, if you're a complex manufacturing company and you're looking to optimize your advanced planning and scheduling and manufacturing execution system, we have a technology that is AI and machine learning driven that connects both of your ERP systems. And so if you're in complex manufacturing, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with you. I'm in a lot of manufacturing circles here with a lot of good people and community. And I just toured Proterra. Really enjoyed that. I just sat down with Rick Jenkins, and he has a podcast, The Mind Behind the Machines, to talk manufacturing. And we're going to be working with him on some different things. And I love manufacturing, and I love being in that space. And so if you want to talk manufacturing shop, let me know. If you're having some issues, connecting your APS and MES systems, ERP systems, give me a shout. Let's talk about it.
Cool. If you're having trouble connecting your NES, your old school Nintendo Entertainment System, give me a call.
He's your guy. Or if you want to build a beautiful podcast studio or a cigar studio in your home and have it completely Rabbit Air, plug for Rabbit Air, sponsor him. We need some Rabbit Air sponsorship.
Agreed.
Perfect lighting, great aesthetics. Chris is your guy.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yep, the smoking room. Like I told somebody, I haven't started pumping it yet, but I already bought the URL. So I have the domain for the smoking room.
Let's go.
I went ahead and snagged the Instagram handle, the smoking room co. So I just haven't started really pumping it out there. So yeah, if you're a guy, or there's obviously women who smoke cigars. If you got some expendable funds, you got a spare room in the house, you want a man cave, I got two options. I'll come in, I'll design the airflow, right? And I'll get you what you need. Or if you want like full decor design, that's the next tier up, but I'll handle that too. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thanks for watching and or listening to Sunday Afternoon Smokes. Y'all get on over to Jess's social media, give her a follow. Definitely reach out if you need help with real estate or complex manufacturing. Is that what you said?
That's it.
Complex manufacturing. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the show, give us a like, give us a follow, or become a sponsor of Sunday Afternoon Smokes. But share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it on your socials, and share it with the world, because Sunday Afternoon Smokes is really sweet. We'll talk to you soon.